name is Abby Maloney, and this is Invest Insights, where we interview thought leaders who are shaping our communities today. In today's episode, I speak with Bill Perry, the shareholder and CEO of Gunster. Bill, once again, Gunster has ranked on Florida Trend's 2020 Best Companies to Work For list for its fourth consecutive year. In times of pandemic where work from home has become commonplace, I have three different questions for you. One is, how do you maintain company culture when most employees are working remote? Two is, how do you onboard and integrate new hires in this new environment? And number three, has the firm reassessed the need for copious office space given that remote work will probably be here for an extended amount of time?
Great questions, Abby, in light of what we've all experienced during COVID. So first, the Florida Trends 2020 Best Companies to Work For. That is a title we're very proud of at Gunster. It's something we have had the last 4 years in a row. Since we've been trying to grow into a statewide firm, I think we've had it 8 out of the last 10 or 12 years. And it's definitely something we strive for. We want to be known as one of the best law firms, best companies to work for in the state of Florida. And we think that really gives us a strategic advantage in attracting talent to come work at Gunster. And by talent, I don't mean just lawyers. I mean, we want our staff to tell their friends that this really is a very good place to work. And we think that helps us compete in the marketplace for talent. And at the end of the day, whatever business you're in, you kind of win or lose based on your talent. And so we think best places to work, and the fact with respect to Gunster, it happens to be a very true statement, is a big part of our strategy and a big part of our success. So with that, I do think that the fact we do have a very good place, a very collegial environment, and we're built on teamwork has really helped us navigate all the challenges you just mentioned that COVID has presented. First, it's helped us work in a remote environment but still stay connected. And we came up with a phrase for that we called Gunster Remote. And we communicated weekly or biweekly with everyone in the law firm, letting them know where we're at a particular moment in time relative to COVID, and then where we're heading into the future and what we saw as the future. We're very focused on science and keeping our employees safe, yet continuing to find a way to do business in a Gunster remote or COVID sensitive environment. So I think our culture actually really helped us do those two things: work remotely, yet stay connected as a law firm and as a community and as a Gunster family during COVID-19. Second part of it, it has been difficult, frankly, integrating new lawyers. We have hired, we're having, I would say, a relatively normal year for us in our hiring, and we have onboarded quite a few lawyers earlier this year and then a few during COVID. That has been a little more challenging. We have used our offices for that and brought people into the office. Some of those people have elected to stay in the office because we are open in our own phase 1 reopening. And we've tried to reopen in a way that it's been fair to everybody. So sharing the responsibility for secretaries who comes into the office one week may not be in the office the following week, kind of sharing the in-office responsibilities, yet providing enough space and social distancing that all of our employees feel safe when they're in the office, and then adopting a bunch of other safety protocols, like most businesses, temperature checks and the like, to make sure we're actually safe for those who choose to work in the office. But onboarding, I will say, has presented a challenge because those people haven't gotten the bond yet with the rest of the Gunster team in person, and allowed our culture to kind of infiltrate their system and become part of it. So that's something we're working on. And one of the ways we're working on it is we're about to embark upon a virtual retreat. We had a retreat planned for 2020 earlier this year. It was canceled by COVID. It was unsafe at the time we had planned to bring everybody together. So we've now, for the first time, created some of the same content and turned it into a virtual retreat. Originally, our retreat was mostly focused on lawyers. This retreat's a little different. We're focusing on all our employees, and we're building in, like we do at most retreats, some social activities where people are going to get to break bread and drink wine or do a CrossFit or Peloton class or engage in a painting or photography experience together. And we hope that the virtual togetherness is going to hold us until we can all gather together as the Gunster family once again in our offices. With respect to your question on offices, are we rethinking? I think every business right now is rethinking their footprint and is it really going to serve them moving forward into the future? I don't see how you could not be thinking about that once you've just proven to yourself that you can operate in the remote format that we've been experiencing the last 6 months. For years, though, law firms have been reducing their square footage per lawyer and have maybe been a little ahead of the trend in having people work remotely some or part of the time, such that the traditional model of one person, one office was already changing over time. What I would see, I think law firms are going to need offices. They're going to need conference rooms for clients to meet and to have mediations and depositions and other gatherings. But we'll probably have more shared space, I think, moving forward as some lawyers come into the office only part of their time and don't have a permanent office or permanent location that they drive to every day. I do think that is going to be a change. And as we build out new offices moving forward, we're going to try to take that into account and probably reinvest some of the dollars that you're spending on rent into technology that makes working remote even easier and better than it is today.
The legal sector has had a reputation of being slow to incorporate technological innovations. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has propelled the legal profession to adapt to a more virtual world. What observations have you had over the past number of months of innovations that you've implemented at Gunster? And what do you think that means for the future of law as it vis-a-vis technology and innovation?
Sure. Well, one of the things I would say about lawyers first, before I talk about innovation, is lawyers generally, I think, have done better in this remote environment than some other businesses that are more dependent on face-to-face contact. We're providing advice to clients. And a lot of times when they call us seeking that advice, they don't care where we are. They need the advice and counsel that lawyers bring to clients. And so, and one of my partners had a great saying. He said, I've been social distancing since kindergarten. And most lawyers, are very comfortable by themselves reading a book or reading a transcript of a trial or a contract. So I think lawyers adopted as a profession well to the working remote environment. From a technological standpoint and innovation, though, I think the hardest part has been connectivity, maintaining connectivity with your colleagues. And you mentioned integration of new lawyers, but there's also training and mentoring of young lawyers, which becomes a little bit harder when they're not sitting across the desk from you as you're negotiating a contract or conducting a hearing. I do think the communication technology like the one we're using now and other communication platforms, Microsoft Teams being an example, have helped people remain connected by not just talking on the telephone, but actually speaking face to face and learning through that experience, particularly for the young lawyers. And like I said before, I think law firms going forward are going to invest even more in technology. And we think those that kind of get it right will have a real strategic and competitive advantage moving forward, because I think businesses are going to expect that now of their law firms, that they're not just available by phone, but they're available to meet virtually, any moment of the day or night. So we're going to have to arm ourselves with that technology moving forward as business demands those kind of changes.
Given the current landscape caused by the pandemic, opportunities to acquire distressed assets are almost certainly going to increase. How is Gunster prepared to assist clients in understanding and addressing these opportunities and the challenges therein?
Well, I think there are going to be some distressed businesses and certainly some really distressed industries. I think some law firms, by the way, are going to suffer distress in this environment. So there are going to be opportunities to acquire lawyers whose platform has been more disrupted than maybe the Gunster platform or other platforms have. So there are opportunities for us in our business that way as well. But yes, some of the distressed sectors like the hospitality sector, I do think are going to, in the retail sector, are going to have some distressed asset opportunities. Luckily, Florida has actually done okay in a number of the areas that I think you would normally think might have been more impacted. But I do think there's been an interest and a resurgence in interest in people relocating to Florida or spending time in Florida during the COVID crisis. Even though we're a big state and we have some large cities, we're also less dense than a lot of places in the country. And I think people are looking for that in places they choose to live and travel, is to get away a little bit and get out and commune with nature and have a little more space between them and their neighbors. So I think Florida is going to both, be hurt in some sectors, and there are going to be those kind of distressed asset buying opportunities in various parts of the state. But I think on balance, Florida is going to come out of this better than most states in that the offsetting positive winds behind Florida's future are going to push it and allow it to grow and develop in other areas that I think will offset the downturn of some sectors.
We've kind of taken 2 steps forward, 1 step back as a nation when it comes to reopening. And it's still unclear when we're really fully going to be reopened. And what are your main concerns for the legal profession as we plan for a economic recovery and a post-pandemic world?
For the legal profession, I think the biggest challenge is going to be when the courts reopen for civil jury trials. I think the court system in Florida has done a very good job in pivoting to using technology to hold a lot of its hearings in the civil system. They have continued, obviously, with their criminal hearings and trials through the pandemic. But in the civil side, they've been able to move forward a lot of hearings and procedural things, but have not had civil jury trials. And given the fact there's going to be at some point in time a bunch of foreclosures and unfortunately evictions and other disruptions that are going to require civil jury trials, I think the court system is going to struggle with the backlog. We have 6 months already of backlog, and I think a lot of the cases related to the COVID downturn haven't hit yet. So I do think that's the number one issue kind of facing lawyers is when do we get back to normal in the court system and how to do that. On the deal side, on the transactional side, I think it's less impactful. I think commerce has continued better in through the COVID downturn, and their transactions have moved forward and figured out how to close remotely and safely during the pandemic. So I think that'd be the number one impact that we have to address, moving forward.
The past number of months have tested the legal profession, businesses in general, the public sector, the private sector in ways that we could have never imagined. What have these months taught you about resiliency?
Well, very important to have it. And, I think it's easier to be resilient when you have hope. So I think in our communications with our staff, we've tried to convey a sense of optimism, which is, I think, correct to have, that we're going to find our way through the forest here, and we're going to get out the other side. And to give people a sense that there is hope, we are going to be able to gather. We're going to find ways to gather, virtually in the interim, but we are going to find ways to gather in the near future when it's safe to do so. And I think that's probably the main leadership message would be, yes, you can be scared, and yes, you can, talk about all the problems, but there is a future to be had here, and those who figure it out how to be successful first are going to come out the backside of this better, stronger than they were going into it because of the lessons we learned through the COVID pandemic.
Well, thank you again. That was Bill Perry, the shareholder and CEO of Gunster. My name is Abby Maloney, and you've been watching Invest Insights. Thanks for tuning in. Hey everyone, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you can stay up to date on the latest business trends from our knowledgeable experts. Be sure to check out the description below for more information on the segment you just watched. Thanks for tuning in.